All right, good morning, good afternoon. Questions?
Coach, really
Yeah.
quick, how has Robert looked down low in the post?
Well, we got a lot of work to do. Our young players, obviously, they're learning, they work hard, and they're all doing everything we're asking them to do. They just got a lot of work to do, and it's still relatively early.
Coach, I don't want to get into the investigations per se, but what are your feelings personally about what Rick Pitino's going through right now? He was your first assistant and long time.
Well, it's obviously it's a difficult time, and that's what it is. Very difficult.
Does that scandal at all affect your stance on whether athletes deserve to be compensated?
That has nothing to do with whether they should be compensated.
Not if there was bribery.
If they were compensated, that could still happen.
Do you think athletes deserve to be compensated?
As workers, you mean? Compensated as workers?
Whatever compensation is.
Well,
for
that's what I'm
pay,
asking.
I mean, endorsements.
So you think, in other words, is your question, should they be employees of the university?
No, should they be entitled to compensation outside of scholarship?
Well, to get compensation, you have to be an employee.
Should they be allowed to get endorsements?
No.
No. Should they be able to be employees? Or
No,
paid
I don't
employees?
think that's the right way to go. I never have. I think that the cost of attendance has been a factor that's helped players. I think the additional meals has been something that's helped players. Do you have any idea how much a player gets? Do you have any idea how much a player gets in college?
Do I have any idea?
Yeah.
I wouldn't know as much as you know.
No, I'm just asking if you have any idea.
I don't know what you mean by what they get. I don't.
What resources they get, what money they get.
Any idea? Yeah, I'm aware of the cost of attendance. So I'm assuming-
How much is that? It's between
sacrifice, I
$2,000 and
guess.
$6,000, depending on the school. The cost of the two
No, I'm
meals.
aware. Yeah, I'm
So there has, my point is, there's been movement to help student athletes in terms of getting resources that they didn't have before. And I think all coaches, and including me, have always been for them to get more resources, not to be compensated as employees, no. The fact that if you are a need athlete, you can get the full Pell Grant, which is in the $6,000 to $7,000 area. So if you were getting the full Pell Grant, and if you were at a school that had cost of attendance of $5,000, let's just say that's some kind of a mean, 4,000 is probably a mean number. If you were an at-need student, you could get around $11,000 in addition to your scholarship, plus two meals or a snack or something and a meal every day, which is a huge stride over where we were 5-6 years ago. And so I think all coaches are for that. But as far as being paid employees, no.
But like a lot of the advocates for compensation say that it doesn't necessarily need to be paid as employees.
And I explained exactly what I think they should get before you asked that question.
Jim, were you surprised at anything that came out with the Adidas stuff?
You know, I think the thing with the shoe companies, there's always been some involvement. Obviously, if you know anything about the shoe companies, they sponsor the AAU programs around the country. So that's 30 elite Nike schools, or not schools, programs. I don't know the exact numbers, 15, 20 Adidas schools, 15, 20 at Under Armour. They're all sponsored by those programs. And I think that there always was a fear that, or a belief in some cases that shoe companies would influence a kid if he's in a program of Adidas or Under Armour or Nike, that those shoe people would try to influence them to go to a particular school. It doesn't happen with Nike. Nike has about 80 schools, so they're not going to influence somebody. The guys we're recruiting against 3 or 4 Nike schools most of the time. So they're not going to help one of those schools. Whereas in the past, I think if they're, and I'm not being specific here, if a shoe company has a player in their program and there's only one Adidas school recruiting that player, I think there could be influences in those cases, but all the kids that play for Adidas in the summer programs don't go to Adidas schools. All the kids that play for Under Armour don't go to Under Armour schools. Some do. All the kids that go to Nike school or play in Nike programs don't necessarily go to Nike schools. So it was a surprise to me that the involvement of the assistant coaches, I think that was a surprise to everybody. There's always been outside influences in terms of the shoe companies or agents, but it's the first time that I think there was a found to be an involvement of assistant coaches. That's obviously troubling. That's not what we need in our game.
Is it even possible that the NCAA could take over the summer?
Well, they've always talked about that, but they don't want to spend the money. But that's not the problem. People don't know facts. They just make, not you, Mike, but people make statements. There's only 4 summer programs, summer events that coaches go to. There's 16 events that AU teams go to. So even if you eliminated summer basketball, which is probably what will happen out of this commission, that'll be their reaction. We'll eliminate coaches going out in the summertime. That's 4 events. There's still 12 other events. Kids are still going to play AU basketball. They may not play quite as much if we're not there, but my guess is if the summer comes and there's a weekend tournament in Atlanta and then a weekend tournament in Vegas or California or wherever, they're going to go. Players are going to go. They're going to go play. And if we're not there, who will be there?
So you said that's not the problem, Jim. What do you think the problem is? What do you think the root of the problem is?
The root of what problem?
The problem that the FBI is investigating, that there's money.
Well, first of all, I think the FBI could do a lot better investigating criminals and terrorists than they can investigating college basketball, in my opinion. I mean, I'm a taxpayer. There's a few taxpayers here. I'd sure as hell rather have them looking into terrorism and not spending 3 years investigating AU programs or shoe companies. That's the least of our concern.
Regardless of, do you think there's a root problem? Is money being exchanged with recruits, and how do you?
Well, let's see. In 1920, there was a recruiting scandal in football that players were getting paid. That was almost 100 years ago.
So you don't think there's a problem, or you think it's just going to happen regardless of?
I don't know. I don't know if it happens. You know, I don't know. I think that there's always been underlying thoughts that something was happening here and there, but I would say in my experience it's probably a lot better today than it was 40 years ago. Probably. Because of, I think a lot of one and done kids, they don't even worry about that because they know they're going to be in the NBA in a year and not have to worry about that. I think there will be changes made. Summer basketball probably will go out. I mean, it's fine. We can work around that, but I've found a lot of players in the summertime when I can go out that we would never have recruited if I hadn't gone out in the summertime. Hakeem Warwick's the biggest one, but there's been other ones too that we see in the summertime, and that's how we recruit them. I can't go out during the year. They say, all the critics say, well, just go out during the year and recruit. Well, I'm trying to coach my team, so I'm not going to go out on the road during the year. I very seldom see a game. Once in a great while, I'll go out and see a game. Very rarely. And so that is not really good, but that'll be what happens. They'll probably, there'll be something done with the one and done thing. I think is going to change. I think they'll go out, but that won't really matter. I think there'll still be kids that, you know, are good players that agents will want to get involved with. Agents try to get involved, especially agents that don't have any clients. They have nothing to lose. They got a job, they need to get players, and they have nothing to lose if they go out and try to get a kid. They've done that. They have done that. It's been proven. But, you know, I think we have a good game. I think things are pretty good, I think, in the recruiting angle. But I think there will be things done. None of that is going to change somebody doing something. I'd be much more concerned with the agents. I think the shoe company thing, that I think they'll be out of that, trying to do that now, I think. But I think that the agents are always going to be around. There's always going to be a threat that they are going to try to influence kids or get kids early. That's part of it. But I think we should do everything we can to get players as much as we can in terms of money. But any kid that would get an endorsement, to go back to your question, will get his money when he goes to the NBA. And the other kids that aren't probably going to end up in the NBA aren't going to get endorsements in college either. They're going to get them eventually. The great players will. The greatest myth of all time, or fabrication, was Chris Webber saying they sold all my jerseys and I didn't get any money. Well, first of all, the jersey sales it's very little money, and Chris Webber got over $150 million in the NBA. So he got, his platform was college. He built his reputation there, and he cashed in the NBA. Guys like me, I wouldn't have gotten any endorsements, but I didn't have any bills when I was done playing basketball. I didn't owe money like most students do. So the endorsement thing is a complete non-starter for me, because what you would have then is real troubling circumstances.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I guess my question would be, why, if a player has market value right now, should they not be entitled to that market value?
Because the market value would be determined by, you come to our school and this company will give you a $100,000 endorsement deal. Perfectly legal. Perfectly legal.
When would they get that endorsement?
When they got, anytime, if endorsements
Oh, if
was
you're saying
legal, if it was legal.
And
Getting back to your team this year, obviously ties battles.
Is that a problem?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a problem. I think it's a problem.
Getting back to the team this year, have you seen Ty's battle kind of step into that leadership role?
Well, I think, again, you know, we've had a couple weeks of practice. I think Tyus has worked extremely hard. I really do. I think he's much improved player. He's much stronger, much more physical, much more confident in what he should do. I think he had a great year last year. I think particularly the end of the year, he showed, obviously, against the best teams in the country in our league, what he can do. And I think he's much better this year. I think we always look for improvement from players, but I would say his improvement is genuine, is large, and I think he's ready to go. But I think all of our players have worked hard. Our freshmen were here both sessions, which is very unusual. I think they really are way ahead of where they would be because of that. I think because of what they've done. Obviously, they're still freshmen. They were working against each other, which isn't necessarily a recipe to get a lot better, but they were working on their games and the weight rooms. So I think that, again, that part of being able to work a little bit with freshmen in the summertime and get them to be in the weight room in the summertime is among the positive things that have been done the last few years that have helped players. And again, just to emphasize what the NCAA has done that's good is that they have allowed the food and they have allowed the cost of attendance, and I think those are all great steps. I think we could do a little bit more. Certainly parents going to tournaments, Final Fours, things like that. All those things are things that should be done for players, and I think we can continue along that route, and it would be good. But you know, again, player by player, I've seen great improvements. We still have a lot of work to do, but I've seen a lot of genuine improvement.
And Coach, you mentioned the freshman. How's kind of Mark adapted from the European game to college?
You know, he's an American kind of player. He doesn't play as much like a European as some typical big guys where they just shoot outside. He can put the ball on the floor, drive, active player, rebounds it, jumps well, a pretty good shooter. Not as good as most European big guys, but a pretty good shooter. But he works hard at the game. He understands the game. Doesn't understand me much, but he understands. he understands the game and how to play, and I think he's doing great.
And how close is he from a strength perspective?
Well, you know, strength is, you know, he doesn't have the bulk, but he weighs the same as Hakeem Warwick did and Louis Orr did when they were freshmen, and they were pretty good players.
How is what you've seen from Brissett compared to what you expected from him?
I think O'Shea has worked very hard. He's a hard worker. I think he's really gotten better since he's gotten here because of his ethic, his work ethic. Both Howard and O'Shea work extremely hard, as hard as anybody that we've had. And I think they're both good players, and I think they're getting better. Obviously, they need to get in games and, you know, see how they adjust in those situations before you know what they're going to be. But
Any specific improvements you've seen from O'Shea?
just stronger. You know, strength is a big part of it, but learning how the system works. I think all those things. He's right on schedule.
One of the big
Victoria not coming back, what kind of adjustments have you?
I don't talk about players that aren't here.
Coach, one of the big challenges, especially early on, be having the chemistry of all the newcomers with the guys returning like Frank and Tyus.
Well, I think they get along great. You know, chemistry is. I've never used that word. I don't think it's very relevant. I'm not sure where that word got into play. You know, you have to be able to play together, and maybe I don't like that word. I didn't like chemistry. I wasn't very good at it.
Neither was I.
Jim, what are your expectations for Frank this year? What are your expectations for Frank?
You know, he works hard. He's getting better, and you know, we'll see what he can do. I think he's improved. I think he's shooting the ball better. He was a little rusty. Obviously, he didn't play this summer. I don't think that hurt him that much because he's had plenty of a game experience. But I think that he's a much better player this year at this stage than he was last year.
Jimmy, you shot a lot of threes last year and made a lot of threes this year. I imagine this year your composition of the way you're running your offense will be a little different. And
You know, we just have to see. You know, we'll have to see. We were a very good three-point shooting team last year. This year's team, you know, we may not be able to shoot as many threes and be as effective from the three-point line. So, you know, we'll have to adjust and find some other way to attack. Some years you can't. We've had some really good teams that didn't make a lot of threes.
How do you plan on using Gino Thorpe this year?
Gino's a good player. He's not going to play tonight. He's just turned his ankle yesterday. He should be back at practice in a day or two. But he's a good player. He can play the one or the two. He's experienced. He's a pretty good shooter. He's a very good driver. He's a very good defensive player. He makes a lot of plays on defense. He's aggressive, physical, and I think we can be a much better defensive team this year. Our big guys have to be healthy, and that's important. They've been healthy. They're playing good. But I think we're a little bigger and have a little bit more potential to be a better defensive team than we were last year. We won't be as good an offensive team. We had a very good offensive team last year. But I think there's a possibility to be a good defensive team this year. And We're bigger at the guard spot. As I've said before, we'll play 3 guards definitely at times this year. But you kind of have to wait and see exactly how that works. And I mean, I think that's what we'll do at this stage. But, you know, a lot depends on how everybody plays.
Did you pick up anything from having Andrew and John Gillen here last year in terms of bringing in a player?
Yeah, I think they were very helpful for us. We wouldn't have won 19 games without those 2 guys last year. We needed them. I mean, we had a loss with Malachi at the last, you know, and we didn't expect to have, and Andrew filled in and played very well there, and that helped us. We had a good team last year. The problem was we couldn't get started. It took too long for them to come together. We lost games early in the year that we couldn't lose. But after that, we were a real good basketball team. We won 10 games in the best league in the country, and we beat some of the best teams in the country. But we had a bad start, and we could not overcome that. And mainly, I think, because it took, you know, again, it was two freshmen and 2 new guys playing the bulk of the minutes and a sophomore. This year, we're still young in the front line, but we're a little bit more experienced in the backcourt. And, you know, we'll see how that plays out. Everybody's, to some extent, in college basketball relies on young players. That's just the nature of college basketball right now.
You mentioned Matthew, experience. Matthew Moyer's been in the system for a year, hasn't played. Can you talk about him?
Well, he's benefited from being here for the year. He's in better condition. He's improved his shooting. Again, he's our most experienced forward.
Jim, were you at all bothered by what seemed like a very disproportionate response to North Carolina?
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on anything about that.
Coach, in a day and age.
But as you've mentioned many times in your writings, coach responsibility, that didn't apply in North Carolina. Screamingly obvious, and I'm surprised that you especially haven't been all over that. I'm supposed to know about a 10-page paper, and they don't know about 18 years of A's.
I think it's a bad rule.
Well, it's certainly applied differently.
Was there a staffer that you saw at North Carolina that was they connected, or you just think they didn't necessarily try to connect it?
I know every year what my players get and what courses they get them in. I get a report every semester. What courses, what grades.
In a day and age where coaches are bouncing around, you've been here for 42 years now. What continues to drive you?
It's the same every year. You know, you want to have a great team. You know, there's nothing different. Doesn't matter whether it's your first year, your 10th year, 15, doesn't matter. You want to go out and you want to get this team to be as good as they can be. And there's no carryovers. That's why it's, you know, you have the same focus every year. You can't say, well, yeah, well, we did this 2 years. That doesn't matter. And so it's, as long as I feel that way, I'll try to coach, you know. And I think you should never make anything about age in this country. And I don't know why we ever did. I don't ever know why we had mandatory retirement and all that stuff. It never should have been. And all you got to do is look at Warren Buffett to know that there is no limit to what you can do and at what age you can do it. How old is he? I don't even want to guess, but I know he's older than me. And he's still doing pretty good. I think they only went up about 280% this year. But, so, you know, I think you should be able to do what you do as long as you want to do it and as long as you can do it. And, you know, that's what you're going to do. But if anything, I think I'm more motivated now than I was when I was younger because it's, you know, obviously I'm not going to coach forever, but so you want to do the best you can this year with this team, and you know, that's what we're going to try to do.
Jim, when you're
Coach
saying
staff has been together so long. You bring in Alan Griffin. How do you think he's fit in?
Alan's fit in great. He's always wanted to be here. He's always loved Syracuse. He loves Syracuse more than anybody I've ever had play for me, and he understands working with players and big guys. Everybody makes a big deal about working with big guys. The best guy I ever worked with a big guy was Pete Newell. He was a guard, and he was the best big guy coach that I've ever seen. Mike Hopkins was a guard. He was a great big guy coach. Bernie Fine was a great big guy coach. He didn't play basketball. It's kind of a myth to think, well, you have to be big to coach big guys, because most of the people that coach big guys, I did it when I was here. So,
Does this year feel different without Hop?
it's like you got to be a bird to jump out of a plane. What?
Does this year feel different without Hop here?
Yeah, I mean, Mike was so great for us for so many years, and I'm glad he got this opportunity. It's a great opportunity. He'll do a great job there, but I've been very fortunate. I've had great assistant coaches over the years that have helped us get this program to where it is, and you can't do it as a head coach unless you have great assistant coaches, and he did an unbelievable job for us for a long time, and but I'm fortunate that Jerry and Adrian have been here, know what has to be done, have worked with the groups they're working with now for several years, and Alan played here and knows the system, so all that helps to be able to move on. But it's as a head coach, you're going to lose players. You don't like to lose them, but you lose them, and you have to move on. You lose assistant coaches. Like I said, I've lost so many great coaches here, going back to Rick Pitino and working on all the way up to today. So it's just part of the game.
Jim, when you're saying you might play 3 guards, does that involve sliding ties down on defense?
It depends. We might play man-to-man in those situations, or we might play Tyus at the small forward spot. He's one of our better rebounders anyway at that spot.
What are you looking for out of Washington coming out of the game?
Howard, Howard is a very solid player. He reminds me of Tyler Ennis in how he plays and how he understands the game. And he's a better shooter than Tyler was, but he's a good player.
Coach, you mentioned that Mark had the same strength as Hakeem. Do you think that he's going to be less of a guy in the post than he is from the mid-range?
Well, he's not a post player. He's a 15, 20-foot player. That's what he does.
Jim, the game has gotten faster and smaller, and you've got a rim protector.
You're talking about the NBA now.
In the NBA, yeah.
We're not in the NBA now.
I know.
We're in college.
I know. But generally speaking, that's the trend, right? To go smaller.
In the
and quicker.
NBA, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so you got a rim protector. Do you imagine that you will go up and down a little more, try to go up and down a little more?
We always want to go up and down. I was watching some tape of a game last year, I think Cornell today, and we got up and down in that game. It's early. That was early. But, yeah, I mean, you want to go up and down. To go up and down, you got to get turnovers, or you got to get block shots, or you got to get long rebounds, or something that gets you in those situations. If you don't get one of those 3 things, then you're pretty much going to be in a half-court game. So you have to be able to play both. It's a lot easier to get out and run, get easier baskets that way, but, you have to be able to play both, prepared to play both.
I know it's nothing new for you guys to play some really tough out-of-conference games, but that stretch you have at the end of November, December, you have Maryland, Kansas, and Connecticut.
Yeah.
How much will that help you guys?
We have tough games every year, so they help you, but easy games help you too. You get better every time you play, and just because you play a tough team and you lose, that doesn't necessarily help you get better. That's a myth.
Last question.
A lot of questions this year. All right.
Thank you.